when did your house? When do you remember getting phones, or did you didn't have phones and stuff when you were growing up?
Oh, no.
All the way out here,
No,
yeah.
well, they had the phones up in the valley, all right,
Uh-huh.
but we never had one. When they put the power in up there, they got Uncle Hugh to go with them to see the Puget Power to have them extend the power from here at Acme up to Saxon, because the folks up there wanted the power.
Yeah.
And so my dad didn't get along too well with Uncle Hugh doing that, and that kind of made a bad note for him. So he wouldn't let us get it power. We didn't get any for a long time, and so then about 8 or 10 years after that, well then the troubleshooter down here lived this side of Deming, and so he helped us start putting the poles in down there, put in our own private line. And so he told the Puget Power, and so then they came right out then and put the line down. Well, they weren't going to have us just have a secondary line. They were going to put the line down for us.
Wow. Do you remember when that started, or who started the Acme store?
Hoffman store was the one down here by the railroad track on the Turkington Road, right by the just past the track there, Hoffman store. And then they had the Zober store, which is still up here, is in the same place where that store is now, the Zober store. And that used to have a upstairs in it where they had the community gatherings. I remember that Linda used to play the organ or something up there in that building, or a piano, maybe it was a piano, I don't know. It was off in the corner, and I remember that. It's about the rest of
Shingle
it.
Mill on Jones Creek. Memories of that, or can you tell us anything about that?
No, I don't know. That's up on the Turkington Road. You go up the Turkington Road ways, and then
Yeah.
that came down
So there
off
was
the
a
hill
mill
there,
up
and I don't know. Yeah,
Did you
fellow used to
Why?
pack shingles, lived in our place, in our house there. He and his wife and two little boys, Osdales, used to rent that place before that I fixed it up for Iva and me. And then he packed shingles for Boyd. And I think he had about a 6-machine mill, I think, or so, 4 or 6 machines for making shingles. They always had some cows, and whether they would ship milk out or sell it that way or not, I don't know. But they, and then that's when my uncles started logging, selling logs. About that time, when many years ago.
Was there a logging camp?
Well, I don't know if they really had a logging camp around here particularly, like buildings and that. I don't know that they did that around here, but I know over there on the north end of Lake Samish, why they Rhodes Donovan had a big tract of timber there in about 34, 35 in there. Why, then they hired Uncle Hugh and Uncle Bill to log for them. And they hauled the logs down and dumped them in the bay. And that's Rhodes Donovan. And then since then they call that mountain Galbraith Mountain.
Yeah.
And so I saw a fellow over there at the at the hearing aid place, and he got all excited when I told him my last name was Galbraith, and he said, "You related to the Galbraith Mountain folks?" Well, I said, "I don't know." I said, "If I were not," but
Say yes.
and so I said that I told him about my uncle logging for Rhodes Donovan, that tract of timber up there, and so he said, "Well, that must be it then."
Yeah.
Well, yes, and it's wonderful because they named the mountain after them. Aaron, I think what Aaron was referring to was when Dad and Uncle Glenn logged the homestead up here. Were you here during that time when they were logging up at
I might have been in the Army part of the time when they
I think you were. Yeah,
probably was.
that was Minnie's homestead.
Her homestead.
Yeah, but I think you were in the Army. Yeah, for part of that.
Yeah, I probably was.
Yeah.
I know my dad and uncle and cousin Reese, the 4 of us, went up there hunting one time, stayed a couple of days and nights up there and stayed in the cabin, up in the Hellier cabin.
But you've lived here for so many years and seen so many changes.
Oh yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can describe like things you've seen that really changed the valley, and then also how has the valley kind of stayed the same in your experience?
I don't know. When we used to go, I remember going down by car down to by Prairie and through there, and they were making pavement for the pavement then in sections, and I think they had a flat tire on the car or something. So Grandma Galbraith took my sister and me, walked down the road, and just while they were changing the tire on the car, evidently. I don't remember too much about what went wrong, but anyway, and then eventually we went on, kept going. But then when when the Galbraiths came to Bellingham from Seattle, of course by ship, or they came through on Lake Whatcom, and somebody took them by boat from west end of the lake up to Park, and they told me that Grandpa Galbraith met them down there with a riding horse for Grandma Galbraith to ride on. And there was just a trail from there on up to Wickersham and then into Acme. And that was before the railroad. They were just making the railroad in then.
Wow.
That was before the railroad was completed. And they were working on it then. That's what I'm told.
Yeah, isn't that amazing to imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's getting back a little ways.
Well, what kind of changes have you seen?
Well,
Think about it.
cars going 70, 80 miles an hour down the freeway now, like around Lake Samish and places like that, and we never once had any dream that with a twisty, winding road we'd go right on then, that they'd be driving down the pavement going 70 miles an hour up through that valley, or anywhere in the States, of course. That's been one of the main changes. Well, I remember when we first got we had a radio up there at the house, and that was a squeaking, squawking thing, and the only thing I remember about that was I hear Grandma say, "Shut it off, shut it off." The noise was too much for her.
So give us a message you would like to leave with kids today from your experience of being a boy in the valley and growing up and seeing the world and coming back here and making your living here. Do you have something you would say?
My friend Keith Aarons would say, come up and say, "More fun, more people killed." And I thought, my, what an awful thing to say, more people killed. And it seemed like that's what we're living in now. Every time so much news, there's so many places that people are being killed. And I'd sure like to see more people spending time in the Bible and studying God's Word, and instead of just thinking that, well, things are going to be all right someday on their own. But they're not going to be that way. Times are going to get worse all the time. That's what Scripture tells us, and so people should be thinking about things like that and not just think that, well, in time we'll take care of it.
More love, not so much killing.
Yeah, yeah.
Rhodes, I remember how you've always talked to me about how much you enjoyed going to Minnie's house when you were a child, and you talked about it being like the meeting place for the Galbraith family.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah.
Which is this house right here.
Yeah, the big house over
really?
here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
Is that, we've got one of
Yeah,
And
they always, they kind of kept the family together, you might say. At times they'd take us, we'd go together up to Vancouver, go up to Canada, and spend the day up there at Stanley Park and go up there just and then Well, of course, Uncle Harold coming from Nova Scotia, he felt at home anyway over there in Canada.
Yeah.
Came out from Antigonish.
Yep.
And so I looked up on the map where it was.
Wow.
Well, in those days, I don't know exactly why, only I guess there was work out here in shingle work and making shingles and things like that. I just don't know what brought them out here, but he and Uncle Bill Pettigrew, I guess, came together or came about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what they came out pretty close. I don't know. And Aunt Nay's husband.
He was very young. I think he was 19 or so when he came out from Nova Scotia, and work was hard to find
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
back on the East Coast, and there was more work on the West Coast in Vancouver. Vancouver was booming,
Oh yeah. Mhm.
and
Oh yeah.
his father was a watchmaker and a jeweler.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
My wedding ring that I'm wearing was made by his father.
By Harold?
No,
Oh.
his father.
Yeah, by Harold's
Yeah.
father. Wow.
Oh
so
yeah.
he was a jeweler and watchmaker,
Yeah.
clockmaker, and then
Well, that's what Uncle Harold
Uncle Harold, yeah.
followed that too.
Oh.
Yeah, I know he was very interested in clocks. And he'd
Yeah.
come into the house and start looking around the clocks.
Headstones of a Galbraith Alvin.
oh,
And his says, look back and smile.
Alvin
And
Was
was
it Uncle Hugh's, one of Uncle Hugh's sons,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Alvin,
Right.
yeah. And he got hurt in the logging. I guess the snag fell over and hit him or something like that in a logging accident. I don't know exactly what
back
it was.
in the 1970s.
Yes,
You were married twice.
Got that.
Well, Alvin, my first wife,
Yeah,
married second time.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Shirley-
confusing to us for some
Shirley, I
reason.
married Shirley afterwards, and that's funny because I knew of her when I got out of the service, and so I called her. I thought I called her, well, it's her son's place, and his wife answered the phone, and so I said, I asked her how, asked them how she's doing, and I said, well, I might stop by and see her someday, and if I'm in town. And so she said, well, that'd be nice if you would. And so we went out to dinner, and then we, after that, later on, I went out with her again, then we got married. And she said something, told me, she said, you know, after the first time we went out, she said, I didn't think I'd ever see you again, or I wondered if I'd ever see you again. And I said, well, maybe you wish you hadn't. Well, he was pretty well liked in that. I don't know.
He was sweet as pie.
He kind of, when he had his mind made up what he wanted, and of course he was determined I wasn't going to go in the army, and and so he did his best to keep me out, but it didn't work that way. Well, he liked to trout fish, go fishing up these trouts like Crookham Creek and that. A friend of ours from Seattle would come up and go fishing, and he had this clear plastic line for catching and he could go down the middle of the creek and walk along, and with that kind of line, leader on his line, and he'd catch fish out in the riffles where we'd try to go down more where there was a log or something like that along that, but and my dad liked to, when my dad was a good fisherman, he liked to go fishing with us. Go up there hunting a few times, 2 or 3 times, up on that mountain, and I was hunting up there, and we were hunting on the lower part of the mountain, up there, about halfway up, you might say, where the logging was, and there's kind of small deer was there, but we didn't want him. We let him go, and so Cousin Reese said, "How about going with me up on the mountain up here, on Bodell Donovan's area?" And the next day, had to go hunting, and I said, "Yeah, that sounds good." So we went up there, and we got up on this ridge, and so we drove up on Lervick's Road about 2 or 3 miles, a couple miles or so, and then we walked up on this ridge, and so he said, you go down the ridge, and I'll go out through the basin, and maybe I'll scare a deer over for you. And so I was up on this ridge, and I looked down. I just got down a little ways, and there the buck was rubbing his horns on some brush down there, and he was just broadside to me. And so he was as good as gone when I one shot for him, and then Cousin Reese came over and helped me, and we dressed him out. But that was but Claire, when he helped carry him out, because my dad was going to go with us the next day to bring it out, but he said he'd go up and help us carry it out. But when he saw that deer, why, he almost he kind of made a poor bargain, I think, but because we brought out about three 80-pound, 75 or 80-pound packs. It was about 230 or 40 pounds altogether we carried out. And my Uncle Robert was my mother's youngest brother, and he liked rifles and stuff. And so before he passed away, he gave me a nice Model 70 222 rifle, and then I bought a 30-06 Springfield when I got out of the service, and then after I was out a while, I bought a 30-06 Marlin, just like it looked like a Winchester, but it was a Marlin, and I still have that, of course, and that rifle that my uncle gave me. But yeah, he gave it to me to shoot coyotes with that 222. It's a small bullet, but it's a fast bullet. So then I was out there. Paul had dragged a cow out back of the barn up there at the place, and out by the trees, and so coyotes started in it. So I went out and stood behind a cedar tree, and when a coyote came in there and was eating away, soon he lifted up his head and I shot, and of course he fell right down into the carcass.
So you were a pretty good shot.
But, well, the rifle did the work. But Claire and I, though, our eyes were about the same for shooting. He could sight in a rifle. And that deer that I shot up there was probably, I don't know how far, 200 yards, 250 yards, or 200 yards. Yeah. And that was the first time I shot that rifle. And when he sighted in, why, I knew where he was going to shoot. I mean, you know, we just, and then no problem that way. So we had some good times.